Okay, boys and girls, we're going to make another work of abstract art today that looks kind of like this. Now, before we get here, though, let's talk about how we create this abstract work of art. First of all, I want to talk about a new artist with you, and his name is Wassily Kandinsky. Kandinsky was an artist who was very big into abstract art, and he loved to create abstract works of art that were very, very abstract. So almost just a lot of lines and colors and shapes, and not necessarily anything that we recognize, just a very abstract work of art. So in his picture here, when I look at it, at first I just see lots of lines and colors and shapes, but when I look at it closer and I start to focus on the little shapes put together that I see, I can start to see some things that I maybe recognize, like the pictures that we saw before. So this work of abstract art could look totally different to you than it does to me. Abstract art is just kind of about what do you see with your own eyes. So when I look at this picture, and I look at it for a very long time, I start to see maybe some things that I do recognize. I start to see some hills. So I think that maybe this would be an outside scene to me. I kind of see little figures here that kind of look like heads and bodies of people. So that's kind of making sense to me that maybe this is an outside scene with people. And in the background here, I see some shapes that resemble houses, these squares with the triangles on top. So I think that this is kind of like a community of people, and it's an outside scene. So maybe they're kind of working together in their community. So that's what it looks like to me. But maybe to you, it looks like something completely different. Here's another work of art by Kandinsky. This one is also very abstract. When I look at it at first, I just see lots of shapes that I maybe recognize, like circles and triangles. And then when I look at it longer, though, and I kind of put all those shapes together, maybe it looks like a city or an outside or an outdoor or an outer space scene. So I think maybe this kind of looks like a planet to me, but maybe it looks like something totally different to you. Here's another work of art by Kandinsky. This one, to me, looks very dramatic, like it has lots of dark areas and lots of lines that look like they're going very quickly in the background. So to me, this looks like a very dramatic scene, like something is taking place in this scene that is very serious. So I think when Kandinsky was painting this work of art, the idea in his head that he had was kind of like a wartime scene. When two countries were going to war with each other, this was kind of his idea of that type of a scene, an abstract scene of a wartime. So these are some works of Kandinsky. So we're going to try and get some inspiration from Kandinsky today to make our own abstract work of art. So what you will start with today is your white piece of paper. You will put your name on the back. Now we're going to practice a technique today called masking. Masking is when I take some tape and I take just random shapes of tape, and maybe I can even rip this tape a little bit to make new shapes or cut it up. And I'm just going to place these pieces of tape all over on my paper. Before I do that, though, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little less sticky. So I'm just going to press it on my clothes like this and peel it off. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of taking some of the fibers from my shirt a little bit, and it's making the tape less sticky. So when I do this a few times, then I can place my shape down anywhere on my paper. The reason why we want to make this less sticky is because when we take it off later, we don't want to rip our paper. So again, I'm just going to keep doing this with my tape, make it a little less sticky. Now I can rip this shape apart and kind of start to create shapes together by putting these pieces of tape together. I could use my scissors and cut this tape. Maybe I want kind of a triangle shape, so maybe I can cut a triangle from this and try and place down a triangle piece of tape. Maybe a square here. So this could be completely random. They can be totally just odd shapes put together. It does not matter how your shapes look. This is going to be just totally abstract. But if you want to put your shapes together to make more of a realistic shape, you could. Okay, so I'm trying to work towards really filling up the majority of my paper here with lots of different shapes that interact with each other in some way. So either they're touching or they're next to each other. I think for this next shape, I'm going to cut this in kind of an interesting way. I like that. That's kind of interesting. Triangles cut out of that shape. So I'm really going to press and smooth my tape down with my hand so that there's no pieces hanging up. Okay, I think I filled my space pretty well. I think maybe I want to put one more over here. Reach the side there. Okay, so again, really abstract. There's not much I can tell that looks realistic in these tape shapes to me. So now that I've taped everything off, I'm going to take my chalk pastel. Chalk pastel, remember, is kind of like oil pastel, but it's chalky. It's almost like the chalk that you would use on your driveway. So I'm going to take any colors that I would like. I'm going to use the side of the chalk, and I'm just going to rub onto my paper. So as I rubbed in a tiny little area here, I'm going to smooth it out with my finger into all those little spaces that my tape has created. Now I'll switch colors here. Now the thing about chalk though is it's kind of like when it mixes together with other colors, it's kind of like paint. So I'm going to try and stick to only 2 or 3 colors for this so that I don't get any brownish color, because the more colors that mix together, the more that it could create a brownish color as I mix more colors together. So I'm just going to use blue, yellow, and green. I really want to make sure all of my paper is covered with this chalk, a nice even coating of color. I'll do some dark blue too. Okay, so as I've covered all my spaces here, my paper's a little bit chalky. I'm just going to tap it on my table to get all that chalk off. I'm not going to blow it in the air because we don't want to breathe that chalk into our lungs. So now I have all my chalk masked off. Now my fingers are a little bit messy, so I'm going to go wipe on a clean rag by the sink before I take this tape off. And once my hands are pretty clean, now it's time to take my tape off. So I'm going to very carefully try and take all this tape off one by one. And when I take the tape off, I can see the shapes that I created underneath. So I'm going to take all of this tape off. Now some people's tape might be pretty sticky because maybe you didn't tap it on your shirt to get some of that stickiness off. So you might notice that it rips your paper a tiny bit. If it does, that's okay. It'll just be kind of like another shape that you didn't put in there but was created on accident, but that's okay. So I have lots of little pieces here. It's going to take me a while to get all these pieces of tape off. Okay, I think I've got all my pieces of tape off. Oop, there's one more right there. Okay, so as I take my tape off here, I noticed that there might be some areas that I got a little bit of fingerprints on, so I'm just going to take my eraser and go back and clean up those areas a little bit. Erase the fingerprints that I see. Okay, now I've got this really great abstract shape in the middle here that I created with my tape and lots of colors in the background. So my final step here is once I have all my tape off, I'm going to take my Sharpie marker and add some lines and some shapes in some patterns. So this packet will help you to see some different lines and shapes and patterns that you can put into your abstract scene here. So I'm just going to take a Sharpie marker and I'm going to start to add some patterns here. So kind of like Kandinsky, in his works of art, he had lots of lines and shapes repeated over and over in the whole scene. So I'm going to take my marker and just add whatever patterns I like. Now I can kind of experiment with this. Maybe I would like to outline this shape that I see. Kind of like how that looks. It almost looks like this shape is coming forward at me because I've outlined it, and all these shapes are kind of going back in the background. Or I can just add some patterns over here, like maybe some lines. Maybe some shapes or lines that come out from here and some shapes on the end. So this is just whatever you think comes to your brain is what you can draw. The great thing about abstract art is it doesn't really have to mean anything. It doesn't have to be based on a realistic picture like our character drawings. It could just be a lot of lines and shapes and colors, and whatever comes to your brain is what you can draw. So it does not have to look realistic like anything that you've seen before. It can just be an idea. Okay, I'm going to keep taking my marker and keep adding some shapes here. And when I finish this off, I'm really focusing on covering the whole space, not just a little tiny area of pattern, but really covering all the spaces of my picture with pattern. Okay, so this is how we're going to finish our picture today.